Demond Wilson's name is forever linked to Lamont Sanford, but reducing his life to one character would miss the quiet depth of his journey. He was not simply an actor who found fame. He was a man who carried purpose through every chapter of his life. Wilson balanced art, service, faith, and family with a discipline that set him apart in an industry often driven by ego and excess. While millions came to know his face through weekly television, fewer understood the convictions that guided him off camera. He approached success with gratitude rather than entitlement, never confusing applause with identity. His life reflected intentional choices, some celebrated, others misunderstood, all rooted in a desire to live honestly. Long after audiences stopped seeing him regularly on screen, his influence continued through his writing, ministry, and example. His story is not about walking away from fame, but about walking toward meaning. Roots, rhythm, and early promise. Born in Georgia and raised in New York City, Demond Wilson's early years were shaped by movement, discipline, and creative energy. The city exposed him to performance at an unusually young age, and by early childhood, he was already stepping onto professional stages. Dance became his first language, teaching him control, timing, and expression before words ever could. Training in tap and ballet instilled both structure and joy, while appearances at legendary venues like the Apollo Theater affirmed that his talent belonged in spaces where culture was being defined. These experiences were not about fame, but about craft. Wilson learned early that artistry required commitment and humility. The stage was not a place to be admired, but a place to serve the story. That mindset stayed with him throughout his career, shaping performances that felt grounded, precise, and deeply human. Faith planted. Early and never forgotten. Spirituality was not a later addition to Demond Wilson's life. It was present from the beginning. Raised within Christian traditions, he grew up understanding faith as responsibility rather than performance. Childhood experiences in different church environments exposed him to varied expressions of belief, each leaving a lasting impression. A serious health scare in his youth became a defining moment, one that forced reflection far beyond his years. It instilled in him a sense of stewardship over his life and talents. Though his path would lead first through entertainment and public recognition, the internal commitment he made during that formative period never disappeared. Instead, it waited. Wilson carried faith quietly through his early success, allowing it to mature alongside experience. When the time came, it would move from background influence to central purpose, reshaping how he defined success itself. Service, survival, and inner strength. Before his career reached national recognition, Demond Wilson served his country during a turbulent period in American history. Military service exposed him to hardship that could not be staged or rehearsed. The experience demanded resilience, accountability, and emotional endurance, qualities that later informed both his acting and personal discipline. Returning home required adjustment, reflection, and healing, and Wilson turned to performance not as escape, but as expression. The stage became a place where unspoken weight could be transformed into narrative and connection. This chapter of his life deepened his understanding of struggle and strengthened his empathy, qualities audiences would later feel even if they could not name them. His calm presence on screen was not accidental. It was earned. Behind the humor and patience he portrayed lived real experience, shaping a performer capable of anchoring stories with authenticity. Becoming Lamont Sanford. When Sanford and Son premiered, Demond Wilson found himself in a role that demanded balance rather than dominance. Lamont Sanford was not written to steal scenes, but to hold them together. Wilson understood this instinctively. Acting opposite a towering comedic force required restraint, timing, and emotional intelligence. He provided grounding without dulling the humor, allowing chaos to flourish without losing credibility. Audiences connected with Lamont because he felt real, patient, and human. Week after week, Wilson brought consistency to a show that became a cultural touchstone. His performance was not flashy, but it was essential. In many ways, Lamont served as the audience's surrogate, reacting as they might, caring as they did. That connection turned the series into more than entertainment. It became a shared experience across generations. Pressure, visibility, and quiet cost success brought visibility, and visibility brought pressure. Being part of one of television's most popular shows meant living under constant expectation. While audiences laughed, the demands of production, performance, and public scrutiny accumulated quietly. Wilson carried responsibility not only for his work, but for representing something larger during a time of cultural change. Moments of professional tension tested him, revealing how easily communication can fracture under stress. Yet he chose reflection over resentment. Rather than allowing disappointment to harden him, Wilson leaned into forgiveness and perspective. He understood that lasting peace required letting go of what could not be controlled. This approach preserved both his dignity and his relationships. Fame did not embitter him, but it clarified his values. The experience taught him that visibility alone could never sustain fulfillment, planting the seeds for future transformation. Beyond television and continued craft. After the series ended, Demond Wilson continued working, deliberately expanding beyond the role that defined him. He accepted new television and film projects that challenged him creatively, refusing to be confined by familiarity. Each role represented effort rather than entitlement. He approached every opportunity as a working actor, not a former star. This period demonstrated his commitment to craft over comfort. While none of these projects matched the cultural reach of his earlier work, they reflected integrity and persistence. Wilson understood that careers evolve and relevance is not guaranteed by history alone. He remained adaptable, curious, and professional, even as his priorities began to shift. Acting was still meaningful, but it was no longer the sole measure of success. His willingness to continue working without chasing spotlight revealed a maturity that would soon define his next chapter: writing, ministry, and purpose. Eventually, Demond Wilson's long-held spiritual commitments moved to the center of his life. He pursued ministry with the same seriousness he once applied to performance, viewing it as service rather than status. Writing became another extension of that calling. Through books and public speaking, he explored faith, culture, and personal responsibility with directness and conviction. His memoir offered honesty rather than nostalgia, acknowledging both the joy and difficulty of his most famous years. Wilson never romanticized the past, he examined it. Ministry allowed him to engage with people in moments of vulnerability, offering perspective shaped by experience rather than theory. This phase of his life was not a rejection of entertainment, but a reordering of priorities. He chose depth over exposure, believing that influence mattered more than visibility and service more than applause. Family, balance, and enduring meaning. At the heart of Demond Wilson's life was family. Marriage, fatherhood, and responsibility grounded him through every transition. Fame never replaced his commitment to home, nor did ministry distance him from it. He viewed success as something to be shared, not displayed. The balance allowed him to navigate public life without losing private integrity. His story endures because it reflects choices many wrestle with, but few make openly. He demonstrated that it is possible to step back without disappearing, to evolve without abandoning the past, and to redefine achievement on one's own terms. Wilson's legacy is not confined to reruns or recognition. It lives in example. He made people laugh, yes, but he also invited them to think, reflect, and choose purpose over pressure. That contribution remains deeply relevant long after